Well, good morning. It's 12 o'clock and it's the Dr. Tech Show again. We're here again. I realised, guys, that last week was our 10th episode and we should have had a big celebration for the 10th episode, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Which we didn't. I now realised by looking at my screen that I should not have worn this shirt because I'm not sure the camera can cope with it. But anyway, there we go. So welcome to the Dr. Tech Show. It's Monday. It's a pretty horrible, miserable day here in Huddersfield. It's raining. It's cold. It doesn't feel like late July. But there we are. So is it any different where you are? Let's start with Swain this time. Swain, what's it like in Orkney?
It's a lovely day in Orkney. I believe we're getting the weather you have today, tomorrow.
Okay. Okay. Pauline, what's it like in Birmingham?
Yes, I have to report that it is, in fact, raining in Birmingham, surprisingly, because it's always sunny in Birmingham. But I did manage to get out this morning before the rain and cut some of my sweet peas, which are coming along very nicely. And, of course, they come on better if you keep cutting them. So I've got them front and back of the house, and they're lovely colours and lovely smell as well.
Good. Right, well, really, really good to hear it. So we don't have a guest today. We're going to... We've got lots and lots of topics to discuss. If you want to join us, then please, as it says on the screen, email drtechshow@gmail.com or call one of those, I always get that wrong, one of those numbers up there. And you can get in on the show or leave us a comment on the YouTube, on the box on YouTube, and we'll get you in on the show. But anyway, in the meantime, Pauline, you've got something to tell us about. It's a big day this week.
It is. On Thursday, 30th, John and Swain, it's International Friendship Day. And this was proclaimed in 2011 by the UN General Assembly with the idea that friendship between peoples, countries, cultures, and individuals can inspire peace efforts and build bridges between communities. And the resolution places emphasis on involving young people as future leaders in community activities that include different cultures and promote international understanding and respect for diversity. And to mark the International Day of Friendship, the UN encourages governments, international organizations, and civil society groups to hold events, activities, and initiatives that contribute to the efforts of the international community towards promoting a dialogue among civilizations, solidarity, mutual understanding, and reconciliation. And I think that's a great description of what we're doing here on the Dr. Tech Show.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's the key reason I think why we established this show. I think there's always been a debate for as long as I can remember about whether or not you can foster true friendships online. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people say, and I think it's probably true, that talking to people online is no substitute for talking to them face to face. But particularly, I think if you're an isolated person who struggles to get out of the house, then talking to someone online is a lot better than not talking to anybody at all, in my opinion. Personally, I've met probably hundreds of people that I wouldn't otherwise have met through social media, using the internet. And I think I still hope to meet you one day in person, Swain. You're one of those people I still want to meet in person, but it's great. It's great to have this friendship. I think we have.
I think we do. You've escaped so far, so good luck. No, like you, I have friends all over the world that I really only know online. I may have met them once or twice, but my real relationship with them is online. I don't think I've met Pauline, although it's possible that we have. But no, I totally agree. Living where I do, it's a very important way of making contacts and keeping up with the world, the big bad world. It's not to say I don't have lots of lovely friends here who I see regularly in person when we're allowed to, but in terms of online stuff, lots and lots of people, literally all over the world. But my life would be a lot poorer without knowing.
Same here. I mean, I must say, I find Twitter particularly a great place to meet people, and there's several people in my timeline who I first met on social media and started following them or retweeting what they were saying, and to their surprise sometimes, because they didn't realize who was kind of behind the account. Because as I'm sure others, the rest of us here, I've got 12 accounts that I tweet from, so different voices at different times. But it has been a joy to find, these voices online, and then retweet them, follow them, have conversations with them, and then eventually sometimes meet them in person. Emma Rogers, for example, who helps to run Comms Camp, is somebody that I put in a list of Irish women in Britain, and then met her, sometime afterwards, and she was thrilled to be on the list. And then, we were thrilled to meet each other in person, 2 Irish women at an event in England. Lorna Prescott's another person who does great stuff in Dudley. She was someone I met online for the first time, and then we went on to organise VCSS camp together. So, great things have come out of the contacts I've had online with people. And yeah, can highly recommend it.
Yeah, exactly. And so friendship, and I suppose that's the other thing about all this, is that I really feel for the people who are not able to connect like this. Particularly people who are home. I suppose the shielding guidance has changed now, hasn't it? But I mean, there will still be people who are isolated at home, who can't get out, and being able to do this kind of thing, I think, is exactly the kind of thing that will help people, because we all know that loneliness is a killer. And if we've got tools to address it, then by all means, I think we really should be using it. So, yeah. So International Friendship Day, I think, is right up our street. It's definitely something that we should be encouraging. So on Thursday, get out there, or get online maybe, and celebrate International Friendship Day. Just reach out to a friend who you haven't spoke to, and maybe make a new friend or two. It's excellent thing to be celebrating. A lot of these days that happen seem a bit false and contrived, but I think International Friendship Day, definitely something we should be celebrating. So, okay, well, we've got a number of topics we want to discuss, and this is one that I've opened the wrong tab and got the live show on, which is always a mistake. But so here's something, Pauline, that you raised with us. If I can just get to it. Right. So the great people at Reason Digital have been doing some really interesting stuff in response to the pandemic. They're a social enterprise based in Manchester, and have been doing some really creative things, I think, and things that really accord with the mission of the Dr. Tech Show. And one of the things I'm particularly interested in is that they have. We talked in the past on this show about reusing old smartphones, and the fact that's not always easy in comparison to reusing old computers. But what Reason Digital have done is they have they've repurposed old smartphones so that they become one-touch video calling devices, and I think that's an absolutely fabulous thing to be doing with an old smartphone. And so hopefully I'm going to be reaching out to Reason Digital and hoping that somebody from there will come on the show and talk about how they've done this. But certainly I think being able to repurpose an old smartphone for somebody without digital skills, so that it just becomes something that they can press a button on and be connected to someone by video call, that seems to me a really incredible thing to be doing. And just the kind of thing. And think of all those old smartphones people have got knocking around in drawers that they've kept because they've upgraded their phones and thought one day there might come a use for it. Well, here is that use.
The other great thing about this project is it seems to have been a side project for somebody in Reason Digital. So something that somebody just decided to put their mind to. And that's always great for those of us in the Tech for Good field who would rather someone identifies a problem and then find a solution, rather than, come up with a solution and then look for the problem that it addresses. So it seems like, they've used their knowledge of what's needed in the world, especially now, and done something really useful, to address that.
Yeah, I mean, also the app itself is available for free. So if anybody wants to use it, then they should get in touch with Reason Digital if you've got a purpose for it. And certainly I'll be looking for I've got a number of projects I'm hopefully working on in the not too distant future that I'll be looking, I think, maybe looking to do something like this with, because we've talked about all the devices that are out there, the Facebook portals, the comps, the Cradle Connects, the Amazon Echoes that can do this kind of thing in a relatively simple way. But I think the thing about this particular project is A, it does it in probably an even more simple way than some of those devices, and B, it's, you know, providing you've got an old smartphone hanging around somewhere, it's almost free to deploy it, and you don't have to buy an expensive piece of kit to do it. So that's a particular benefit of this project, I think. So
It looks great. I have 2 or 3 phones that I'll be trying this out on.
excellent. I think I mean, the way it works is that I think you can only call one. You have to designate one person that you can call. You know, I'm sure it could. Yeah, I think that's a good thing in many cases. Personally, I think I'd prefer it if you could call more than one person, but maybe it can be repurposed to do that at some point in the future. But you know, I think it really is a good thing. Yeah, be interested to know how old the phone, you know, how old you can go back in terms of the phones.
I'm sure I've got an iPhone 3S somewhere I could give it a go with. No, I mean, I suppose that it's the old simplicity versus functionality thing. The more you try and let it do, the more complicated it is. And for something to have as its main feature to be literally as simple as possible, I think it's quite a good start. And I'm sure that some people would move on from this to something where they could perhaps call more people if they had a bit of support.
Yeah, especially as it, you know, reading the blog post, it's clear that it's come, as I said, from a need that was identified by volunteers. So it's the user, you know, really genuine user research that has produced this project to make this happen. So that's always good. We like that on this show.
Well, we certainly do.
I think the thing that I would be looking at in this is what support is in that app to help move the person on from it to something more general. And maybe that's something that we could give some thought to. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, obviously, it's solving a short-term issue, isn't it? People being isolated during the time of lockdown. But yeah, I mean, if it could be used as an introduction to other digital things that would benefit people, I think that would be good. Yeah, one of the things it makes me think about, I mean, I know this is something that you and I have discussed in the past, Pauline, is people like, particularly, you know, I think an interest that's close to your heart is Irish expats who want to listen to radio from back home. You know, that applies to lots of people living in this country with backgrounds from other countries. Is you know, one of the things I've thought is you could repurpose an old smartphone to become a sort of online radio by just putting the radio app on it and doing that. And it seems to me that's a similar thing that you could possibly do with this kind of principle. You know, repurposing an old smartphone just to do one thing that you just press a single button to do that makes life a lot easier.
That's a great idea, John. In fact, I was just listening to RT this morning before, you know, getting ready for work. But yeah, it is as you said, for other communities as well. When your home country puts out really good radio programs, and sometimes in, you know, languages that you're more familiar with, then it's very enticing, I think, to want to listen to that radio. And I certainly do. And I know Chinese friends of mine would listen to, you know, radio from where they're from. So yeah, I think there's great scope in that, and I might even look into that myself.
Yeah, well, they could even listen to Hope Radio Birmingham on it as well. Yeah, but certainly, it seems to me, you know, I'm not technically enough to know how to do this, but it seems to me that it should be possible to do something with radio streams that, you know, I suppose the thing that I got a little bit distracted by was I was investigating that kind of thing a few years ago, and then the Amazon Echo came along, and it seemed to me that just being able to talk to the Amazon Echo was probably an even better solution. But again, the problem with that is that it means you're buying a piece of kit that's going to cost you money, whereas you might have a smartphone hanging around that can do a similar kind of job.
It does bring us back though to the discussion on data poverty, that not everybody has the data to be able to run this. So we need two things to work together to make this a reality for people.
Yes, we do. We do.
Mm.
Yes. And so there's been another the Reason Digital have been up to a number of things really. They've been rapidly enabling assistance for key workers, which is another project they've been working on, and they created an app called Help NHS Heroes as a way of distributing food directly to NHS workers at hospital premises after their shifts. So again, there's another interesting thing. There's lots of hula hoops involved.
Very practical. If you go down to the list, they are supplying. They're making it easy for people to be involved, to volunteer,
Yes.
for hospitals, for charities, for partners. So it's a chance for anybody who wants to help the NHS heroes to get involved, which is great.
Yeah. And then the other thing they've been doing is about preventing trauma. So they've developed an app called First Contact, which is a self-help resource, which helps people deal with trauma, which is obviously a very important thing at this point in time. So, I think those are examples of some fairly simple things. Well, if you've got the technical knowledge, they're fairly simple and cheap things that can be done, which meet a need, particularly this time. And so, if you know of any examples, if you've got an example, if you've developed something that might fit this kind of niche, then please get in touch. Email drtechshow@gmail.com. We'd love to have you on, and we'd love to have you talking about it. So the next initiative we wanted to talk about was so this is something again that you picked up, Pauline, about. This is from a councillor, Jenny Fordy, or Jenny Ford, sorry, who've been looking at digital poverty in the Cotswolds, and particularly, this is something that's close to my heart that I've been working on in the past about people not having access to broadband in rural areas, so we've still got an issue in this country with people not being able to access content on broadband if they live in a rural area. Something there has been progress made in the last 10 years in these areas, but there are still people who are who struggle to access the kind of broadband speeds that the rest of us do, and this impacts all sorts of things. It impacts the ability to access things like telehealth and telecare, but it also impacts things like school children being able to do their work online, and which is an increasing factor, and particularly at the moment it's a very big factor. And so there are all those kind of things that are really big issues.
Yeah, there's a whole list of things on the GigaClear site about the rural revolution and the consequences for people who have slow or no broadband. They can have a television show or movie spoiled. They can lose eBay bids, lose items in their shopping cart that later they can't get, miss out on experiencing major sporting events, miss an online shopping delivery slot, which would be particularly bad for some people, failing to receive or responding to an important email, missing out on tickets to events when they can go to them, being late making online banking payments. I mean, that could be tragic for some people, failing to complete a job application or having it rejected, and being the last to find out about important news. And I'm sure we could come up with a whole load of other things that are difficult for people, and now especially, just being lonely. It's crucial. It's not a luxury anymore. It is a vital resource.
Yeah, it really is. And that's
it's the old irony that the people who would benefit most from it, those in rural and, dare I say, island locations, tend to be those who are left to the very end of the latest upgrade cycle. But it's the people who have got left behind with no 2G phone signal and hardly any super slow broadband, never mind super fast broadband. There is a certain minimum requirement now, really, to take part fully in society, really, as that list shows.
Absolutely.
Yes, it does. Yeah. And, so I do think the latest government rural broadband program is supposed to be, I think, and I might have got this wrong, but I've certainly seen some publicity which suggests that they're trying now to tackle the most difficult areas first, which they should have done in the first place, but they didn't. Yeah. I won't go in. I've got a long history of these kind of things, so I won't go into all of it. But yeah, it's quite scandal, really, the way the UK government has supported broadband in this country. But at least, I know we've talked about this on previous shows, at least now they have finally got the message that pure fibre is the future-proof connection, the way to go, rather than keep insisting on using bits of copper. And I did see a story this morning that said that the copper that BT has in the ground could be worth, I can't remember the exact figure now, I think it was something like £2.5 billion. The problem is you've got that's current prices, and you'd have to take it all out of the ground at once to realize that, but which they're obviously not going to do, because that would cut a lot of people's phone lines off and internet connections. But the fact is that the copper wire that BT has in the ground is not very good for internet connections, but it's valuable metal on the world markets. And if they could actually sell that, then they could use that to subsidize new fiber connections. And on the other hand, so over the years, there's been a lot of issues about copper cable being stolen because of its scrap value, whereas fiber cable, which is replacing it, is just bits of glass, and it's not worth anything, unless you're actually going to use it for the purposes intended. So in theory, that should mean that it's a lot less likely to be stolen. Part of the issue at the moment is, if you're a thief looking to steal some cable, you don't know whether the cable you're stealing is copper or glass until it's too late. And so you might have stolen something that's totally worthless. But that's where we
but
are.
as you say, people don't know that until it's too late. And we, losing, like, manhole covers is one that we kind of lose in our area, and in inverted commas. Our half a manhole cover, as we saw the other day, on a diagonal. God knows what they're probably going to come back for the other half at some stage. But yeah, not good when you steal vital stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure that kind of thing doesn't happen in Orkney. Does it, Swain?
Well, no, not very much. There's the odd mysterious disappearance of heating oil from an oil tank outside a house. That goes on, I bet.
Right.
It tends to be in spates, and then someone is identified as the perpetrator, and it stops again for a while.
Hello. And at this point, I'd like to say hello to David Wilcox, old friend of mine, and known to a lot of people in the Tech for Good field, who's joined in to watch us, who's watching us on YouTube. David, if you've got a contribution to make, then let us know, and quite happy to let you join the show. But yeah, it's good to know that somebody's watching.
Yeah, very welcome. David's as you said, John, very established supporter of Tech for Good, popping up all over the place and generally helping out with things.
Yes, David's involved in most things that are good in the Technology for Good world. All around good guy. So yeah, so anyway, hey kids, don't steal fiber cable because it was not worth anything. Right, okay, so the next thing, we're ripping through these a bit quickly, but the next thing that you wanted to point out to us, Pauline, is this is well, do you want to tell us what this is? This is the news from New Zealand.
Yeah, it was a health summer school that happens regularly, obviously, but they were doing it online this year for obvious reasons. So Andy Kinnear, who I just spotted on Twitter, is an ex-NHS CIO. What's CIO?
Chief Information Officer.
That's right. Campaigning to put technology at the heart of our health and care system. was tweeting about a presentation from Shane Hunter at the New Zealand Ministry of Health, who were very proud of their comprehensive response to COVID-19, and I was particularly keen on this slide, and I'll read it out because I think some people won't have access to the internet when they hear this. It might be on the radio in South Birmingham and on Hope Radio. So they listed what they've learned from COVID-19. I think it's a very good list and something that we can reflect on ourselves as well. So they learned that necessity is the mother of invention, and this was key to their response. That there are no borders, regions are simply lines on a map, and that would kind of be an interesting topic to have in a debate here. That the regions were just lines on a map. This is a great one. You can build a plane while it's flying, even if it's flying at high velocity, but it will be a bumpy ride, and you need structures. So that obviously relates to what they were trying to build to respond to the crisis at speed. They went on to say we can procure at speed, and that would be amazing for some, especially for small organizations in this country. Procurement can seem to take forever, and sometimes you're down the line and they're still back at procurement. They went on to say we can move fastest using cloud services, and again, I'm sure we've all had discussions about cloud services and the good and bad of them, but we can, New Zealand obviously found them better. We don't always need to build things, and that's in apostrophes. And and we've had that debate here as well, that, there are plenty of wheels out there. We don't need to reinvent them to respond to this crisis. Our strategic direction of joining things up is the right one. That'd be great. That's great to hear, and I'd like to see more of that happening in this country. Security, privacy, and trust are no less important than normal. And again, I think we've talked about that from time to time as well, including on the devices that we've been talking about in people's homes, that they have a right to have security and privacy as well as the connection. Many of these solutions are better for patients and our workforce. Expectations have been vastly reset. Again, referring back to our findings about user research, finding that testing things out with people who are going to be using them is the best way. We need new funding models. I think we can't disagree with that. And then the final one on this list is we can't revert. We are opportunity rich. Can we take advantage of these? And I think we'd like to kind of commend that and say this is a great list of things to be having on our show.
Yes, excellent. And it's just an example really of how things have changed at speed during this crisis, and how a lot of those things are things that people said could never be done.
Absolutely, yeah, and I would say it's probably especially in the health field, and they've found out that actually things can be done, and there's great transferability then to other sectors as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's really good, and I think I think it's an old one, but the one about building a plane while it's flying. I think the other one is building your plane while you're dropping off the cliff. Which a lot of people like setting up a business to doing that. But but necessity is the mother of invention, I think, is the key message from all of that. And I think we've definitely seen that during the pandemic, that all sorts of things have happened which we didn't otherwise. We kept being told weren't possible.
I think another thing that New Zealand have done is to look at their existing public sector resources and plug them together in innovative ways, rather than, as is perhaps more common in the UK, searching for yet another contract to let. And I think that a lot of the time and energy that we have spent in the UK letting contracts for call centres and goodness knows what all has probably been put directly into solving the issues in New Zealand.
Yes.
Yeah, then it seems obvious to me that some of this stuff was there or in process, and because of COVID-19, they've had to bring things forward, and so it gives great hope to me that things can continue to develop at pace as they have.
From an IT perspective, I have to say that the useful thing in all this COVID-19 work that we've all been doing is that everyone's focused on it and nothing else. So there's not been competing priorities. So that has actually helped everyone everywhere.
Yeah, it'll be good in the retrospective, as I'm sure there will be several retrospectives, to see what the priorities were and how they were, changed and moved on.
Yep, all good stuff. Okay, so moving on, now to something which I spotted. So we've had discussions on this show and elsewhere about the issue of people who are coming out of lockdown and coming out of shielding, and how you give people confidence that that they can go out there, they're not going to be assailed by people breaking social distancing and all those kind of things. And just to say, one of the things is, so during my cancer treatment, I've been producing a regular video diary of what's happening to me during my cancer treatment. And I put one out last week, which was like a dual purpose one. It was an update on my cancer treatment, but it was also documenting my first train journey. And if anybody knows me, knows that it's very unusual for me not to be on a train nearly every day. But during lockdown, I obviously haven't been on a train, and I've been going to medical appointments and getting lifts. But last week I had to go to a medical appointment in Leeds, 20 miles from where I live, and I wasn't anybody available to give me a lift, so I ended up having to catch the train for the first time since early March. And so the video that I put out was partly documenting that train journey and demonstrating to people that, at the moment at least, it appears to be really, really safe traveling on trains, because hardly anybody else is doing it. And I think if you sit at home and you watch the news programs, you see all sorts of scare stories about people breaking social distancing and crowding together and all those kind of things. Whereas the reality is, when you go out there, and that's the issue, I suppose, people respecting social distancing and not a lot of people being on a train, it's not a news story. So it doesn't get reported in the news media. So I think one of the things I think we need to do is we need to have more content, I think, online and elsewhere, that gives people confidence that they can go out there and they're not going to be subject to crowds and people breaking social distancing and all those kind of things. And so the thing that I came across last week, which might be a help in all this, so I did actually put something out on Twitter which said, wouldn't it be good if you could know, if you were going out somewhere, how crowded it was. And somebody pointed me to an app, which is so there's an app called Crowdless, which is being developed. It's being developed by a company called Lantern. And what this app does is it shows you how crowded your local shops and supermarkets are. Well, I think it's just supermarkets at the moment. So you can then tell whether or not you should go out to the supermarket. So I think this is a really good contribution, I think, to helping people gain that confidence to go out after lockdown.
Yeah, it was a response to Innovate UK's business-led innovation in response to global disruption competition, and it seems really simple, but really effective and really useful for people. They've got 60,000 people using it already, John, which is great. I think the UK and Spain and Germany are the main users.
Yeah, I'm going to try and do something now which I've not done before, which is share my phone screen into the show.
Mm-hmm.
So I did test this before we started, and it did work. So I'm hoping it works now.
We really need a drum roll for moments like this.
Hang on, let me stop sharing that one. And then I'm going to go to sharing my phone screen.
For viewers on Hope Radio, the phone screen is the one that's in landscape. No, portrait.
Right. Okay. Can you see that?
Look at that.
Yeah.
It worked.
Perfect.
So what you can see is, so the blue dot is where I live, and the orange and green dots are shops and supermarkets. And so if I click on, so that's Lidl, which is down the road from me, and it's got an estimated crowdedness rating of 36%. So that suggests that it's not very crowded.
36% of what, John?
Okay, so I've just put all the menu now. So you've got not so busy is 1 to 35%, means there are a few people present and no queues are expected. 36 to 70% means there are many people present and often queues form. But I suppose it being 36%, that's at the bottom end of that range. And then 70% or over means very busy. There are likely to be large crowds or long queues. But, I think, but I've not actually tested this out by going to any of these places and seeing how accurate it is. But presuming it is accurate, then this could be a very, very important contribution, I think. So we've got Sainsbury's here, which is 39% crowded. Yeah.
So what's the green one, John? There's a green place.
All right. So the green one is Iceland, which is 32%. I suppose it's green because it's in the lower level.
Yeah.
So that's 32% crowded. And I suppose one of the things that this does say is that it's actually lunchtime, isn't it? And you would expect these kind of places to be quite busy at lunchtime. I suppose it just goes to show that these are all ones that are in the town centre. And it goes to show that people are not using town centre supermarkets to anything like the extent that they did before. No,
but you're also asked to share your own data with the blue button there at the bottom of the screen. Yes. report crowdedness. So they're getting data from users, which is the right way.
Yeah, they are.
Do it. Yeah.
So I'm right. Potentially, presuming it's accurate, then a very important contribution, I think. And there is another way of, so the other way of, I think the camera I'm using is frozen, so I'm going to have to change my my video. There we are, coming up from the bottom of the screen. So the other thing that I was shown, so when I put up this appeal for ways of finding out how crowded places are, the other thing that was pointed out to me was that Google Maps actually does this for some venues at least. And right, so let me share this one. So if you look on Google Maps, it does actually give data as to how busy places are. So this is a Google map of Greenhead Park, which is the park just around the corner from where I live, which is the one that I used to test this on. And if you look at the bottom left of the screen, there's a busyness chart there. And that's based, the blue bars are average levels of busyness, and it's done by hours. So it's like 9 a.m., 10 a.m. So at the moment we're in that 12 till 1 quadrant there. And the red is how busy it is at the moment. And it's a lot busier, less busy than normal, which is really surprising that there aren't many people in the park in the pouring rain.
Yes, what's the factor? What's the data on that? Look out the window, it's raining.
Yeah. Well, the data comes from the location data in Android phones, which obviously Google has access to. So they can tell how many people with Android phones are in there, and they use that to estimate how busy the place is. And obviously there's not many people with Android phones in the park in the pouring rain.
Well, they've got the location data switched off, location marker switched off, as I sometimes do.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I've been looking at this from time to time, particularly about, when I'm going to go out and walk my dogs and say, is it worth going in the park? Is it going to be too busy? And for most of lockdown, those red bars have been much higher than the blue ones because it's a lot busier than it normally is during lockdown, because a lot of people are going to the local park and not going anywhere else they would have gone. But
thing is, though, looking at the park, John, it's quite a big park, so
it is.
I think it's, probably there would be spaces in the park that wouldn't be so busy. They're just aggregating the whole thing, aren't they?
Yeah.
Mm.
Having been in that park during lockdown, I would say there are times where there are very few places where it isn't busy.
Right.
It is right in the middle of the urban area, and it tends to be the place people go to when they want some greenery, and particularly when they're not, but it's full of people running because the gyms are being closed. It's full of people having picnics because they can't go to restaurants, so all these kind of things have been happening during lockdown, so it has been pretty busy. But anyway, so it's interesting that so there's Crowdless as the app. There's Google Maps. There's two ways of trying to estimate how busy places would be. So if you know of any other kind of way of finding that kind of data, we'd love to hear from you. So email us at drtechshow@gmail.com. And the way of getting that data out to people about how busy places are, I think, but at the end of the day, I'm not advocating this, but at the end of the day, the idea would be to have CCTV everywhere so you could see how busy places were. But I'm not advocating that because there's all sorts of privacy angles to CCTV. But yeah, it's just good. I think the more information we can have about where we should be going and how busy places are, I think has got to be a good thing. So that's Crowdless and Google Maps. And just going back to the issue we were talking about earlier on about the fact that the town centre shops are not that busy. You found a story, Pauline, about the fact that people are not visiting town centre shops, and the shops are going to have to move to where people are rather than locating themselves in town centres.
Yeah, that was in the Guardian, and they were saying that, is that the one? Yeah.
I'm just bringing it up now. Yeah.
So for the City of London, they said it's home to 7,000 people, but 400,000 people work there. So a 10% decline in commuting could result in the migration of 17,000 office jobs and almost 8,000 retail jobs. But when people work at home, they need more from where they live. So even as places like the City of London, Westminster, Camden, Manchester and Exeter experience commercial decline equivalent to the loss of 30,000 office units and 20,000 retail units, other regions gain. And mainly that's because a home office is a temporary thing. How many Zoom calls have you been on where you're talking to people in their bedrooms or the kitchens or their back gardens or whatever? It's not a permanent thing. They don't have set up for that yet. So they talk about the London Borough of Lewisham, which could create 1,000 new retail jobs to serve more than 2,000 office workers. Where in Lancashire may need even more units as they're running out of space. And all this data is derived from work at Squire.com, which is an open data economic research project that over the last 5 years has collated a quarterly updated database of commercial ratepayer location data for 95% of the 348 local authorities in England and Wales. So there's good data on this. And it goes on to talk about Google's mobility data, which we've just been talking about. And this is revealing that people are 20% in the last few months, people are 20% more likely to be at home and 50% less likely to be at their place of work. And these estimates are likely to be conservative. So what's most revealed, and which is music to my ears, is the need for more open data. We need more data to be able to make better decisions about what's happening and what needs to happen. And lack of testing data meant, he points out the lack of testing data meant we were too slow to put in the fire breaks necessary to contain the virus, and a lack of commercial activity data means that everyone is being exposed to hidden risks. And then it goes on to more data, but it's clear that we need more data to make better decisions.
Yeah. And actually, if you're still watching David Wilcox actually lives in the City of London, so he might be losing his local shops because the office workers are not coming to the area anymore. So
Yeah.
it's very, very good to be able to tailor our talk to the audience.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Okay. And so the next thing that we want to talk about is a report came out last week from the House of Commons. It was the report on the impact of COVID-19 on the sectors supported by the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport. And there's some quite interesting things in there for relevant to what we talk about on the show. So yeah, so here's the report. So the impact of COVID-19 on DCMS sectors, and there is a whole section about digital exclusion, which provides some interesting things, and it's good to see the department thinking about these kind of things, particularly as I think it appears to be a recognition for the first time, well, certainly for the first time for a long time, that maybe the government needs to start spending money on these kind of issues. And it's all very well highlighting them and having policies in place which say we'd like to see these kind of things happen, and that more people be able to get online and to use digital tools. But actually, that kind of policy is not free, and you do actually need to invest resources in ensuring that people can get online and to use the tools.
Yeah, I mean, one of the key things that jumped out at me, John, was that for the Devices.now campaign, in order to deliver devices to 10,000 of the most vulnerable people, the Devices.now only required a minimum of £2 million, which in the scheme of things seems very small to make that difference to so many people. And the government could also then provide direct, as well as providing direct funding, DCMS could help the campaign to secure other sources of funding by making digital inclusion a clear cross-government priority, which it isn't at the moment.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, it needn't cost a huge amount of money to make these things happen. But, and I think things are starting to shift in that I think more and more people are beginning to realize how important, as we discussed before earlier, how important digital tools are and connection is, and that it's not just a nice to have anymore. It's becoming more and more of an essential service. So I think, it's good to see this being highlighted. I just hope it will result in some action. Yeah, I think we've seen the issue about people being excluded from health services because health services are moving increasingly online. I did an interview on BBC Radio Leeds last week about the fact that some people were being tested for COVID-19, but then not getting the results of their tests because the results of the tests were only being sent out by email and text. And some people were not getting those results because they didn't have the devices to receive them on. So, you know, I think what it goes to show is a disconnect in policy really is that government wants more and more services to be delivered online, but the resources are not there to make sure that the probably 10% of the population which is still not using online tools is able to do so.
There's also a couple of very interesting ideas, which things are happening in Australia, for example, something called data gifting, where individuals can donate mobile data to charities, which sounds wonderful, and Wi-Fi sharing. And government could issue guidance on how people might easily and safely share their home broadband connections with neighbours. And I think, you know, given the scale of support there's been for the COVID-19 mutual aid groups, you know, I think if people were given another way in which they could help their neighbours and friends, then I think they would do that.
Yeah, I think you're dead right.
DCMS, of course, provides services in England, possibly Wales, but the Scottish Government has its own similar scheme called what's called Connecting Scotland, to connect 9,000 people who are considered at clinically high risk themselves, so that they can access services and support and connect with friends and family during the pandemic. So there's activity going on all across the UK.
Good. Well, well done, Scottish Government.
Absolutely.
Showing the rest of the UK the way forward, as it very often
As
does.
usual.
Okay. So watch this space, I think, for whatever comes out of DCMS and what it's going to do next. Right, so the next item that we want to talk about, as we're starting to come towards the end of the show, is this is something I discovered just because I was in a local community meeting in Huddersfield, where I live, and somebody popped up in this community meeting who I'd not come across before, who works for a group called Aspire Creating Communities, and they are giving out free tablets with internet connections to people over 55 in Kirklees. So I'm hoping to get them to come on a future episode, but I'm certainly going to be talking to them fairly soon about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how we can help them to do more of it, really, because I think this is something that needs to be encouraged. They might even have some stories which we can then share on the show about how people are using those tablets. But it's good to see people doing this kind of thing, really.
Yeah, there was a similar project. Midland MenCap in the West Midlands were also offering, I think they had 100 tablets initially to give away. They were Amazon Fire Kindles to give away to people. So it's good to see these little projects popping up, because the more they happen, the more other people feel encouraged and enabled to make things like this happen.
Yeah. It's really good. It's really good, I think. And I just happened to come across it because I was in the community meeting. I didn't actually know about it beforehand. So all power to your elbow, Aspire Creating Communities. And it's really good to see that they are doing those kind of things. And another thing that we wanted to talk about was a charity digital report about how charities are getting across to the digitally excluded during these times. I think, again, this was something that you found, Pauline.
Yeah. It was kind of referring back to kind of the data that we're becoming more familiar with now, in that 9 million people have never used accessed the internet, 27% of people with disabilities, and 3.3 million people, which is 3.3 million people, have never accessed the internet. 75 to 90% of jobs need some kind of use of computers as part of their skills. And offline homes could save up to £560 annually by shopping online and paying bills online. So it seems, kind of counterintuitive that people aren't able to access the tech that would help them do this. And particularly for charities, we think that people being able to use digital skills and technology to help vulnerable people makes complete sense, because it helps people who reach people who maybe can't get into a service to use it at the moment, especially, and also frees up people in charities to automate things that could then free them up to do more frontline face-to-face stuff, which is still vital. So it's certainly come to the forefront during lockdown. There's a story about in Swindon, one woman whose 6 children have been sharing one phone for schoolwork, and so each child could only have an hour on the phone to complete their work. So there was stress for the children about failing their subjects. They actually received a donated tablet, which make a big difference to them. And I'm sure there's plenty of other stories like that happening around the country, where people, have been able to borrow kit, but it needs to be a permanent thing. As we said earlier in the show, it's not a luxury anymore; it's a necessity.
Yes, definitely. And well, thank you, David. David Wilcox has just confirmed in the chat box on YouTube that the City of London is very quiet at the moment. So just goes to show what we were saying about people not using shops in areas where there are lots of offices and workplaces. But so good to hear that. Well, I'm not sure if it is good to hear, but it's interesting to hear that, David. And should we just actually give another big up to Connecting Scotland, Swain, while we're talking about these kind of things?
If you wish, I put the link in
Yes.
chat there for later, really, but you can bring it up now if you want.
Yeah, it's really good to see what's happening.
That's the equivalent in Scotland, or the most nearly equivalent in Scotland to the DCMS initiative.
Yeah.
Great things are happening in Scotland. Third Sector Lab has been running, lots of webinars ever since lockdown started, and I think they've, Scotland certainly is showing the lead in a lot of these digital things.
Yep. Scotland leads the way in also many things. I suppose. So we're coming to the end now, but just quickly to go back to Facebook Portal, which we've talked about a number of times on the show, and this was an article that I came across, which was talking about the fact that one of the things that Facebook Portal does is that it may possibly points its way to the future where our video conferencing experiences are going to become more immersive, because it says that the camera in Facebook Portal, which follows you around, does make the whole video chat a lot more sort of real seeming, and makes you feel like you're much more like you're actually there in the room with the other person. And I think this is this particular article combined with I actually listened to BBC World Service has a program called Tech Tent, which is presented by Rory Kettlin-Jones, and I listen to that as a podcast every week, and they had an item there which was talking about people doing AI, artificial intelligence meetings. So these are meetings which will put you into anywhere that can be created online. So they were talking about holding a meeting in an ancient Greek temple. Now, those of us who were, I think you mentioned this in an earlier show, Second Life, Swain. Was it you that mentioned Second Life?
Yes, it was. Yes, Second Life has been attempting this for 15 years, I think. Maybe.
Yes, yeah. But it seems, I think we're going to a situation now where you could combine the video experience and the AI, so that you could have the real people via video conferences in the artificial environment. Now, whether people want to do that, I don't know.
I think the thing that Facebook Portal has over and above VR headsets is it's not a headset.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the whole VR headset thing, it's been great fun for a small number of people, but I actually cannot see any way at all in which it could be taken up by people for their normal way of interacting. I just can't see how it could possibly work. Facebook Portal, if you read it through the lens of this article, Facebook Portal and that kind of immersiveness might well bring us forward quite a bit.
And he makes a good point about how did you do that? How did you do that effect? That it makes people want to get devices. And the writer is saying that Facebook can and should discount or even give away Portal devices to fitness instructors, teachers, cooking class chefs, comedians for kids, anyone in general with an audience doing live video that involves movement. And I could see great enthusiasm for that. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Okay. So we're coming towards the end. Thank you both. Have either of you got some last words words of wisdom you want to impart?
No, just thanks to our listeners on the YouTube and also from Hope Radio in South Birmingham. And we hope you're enjoying the show, and we look forward to hearing more from you.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see you next week. Next week, we hope to have a round table discussion as part of our show with a group of business women, all of whom have got online for the first time during this crisis. So that will be an interesting part of the show next week. But thank you for watching. Get in touch with us if you want to be part of a future show, drtechshow@gmail.com. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.